Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This week's parasha is Parashat Behaalotecha. It speaks about a number of different stories and narratives taking place as the Jews are wandering in the desert. They've already received the Torah and they're slowly making their way to the land of Israel. There are two stories that are really interesting to connect in this parasha because they are both stories of times where the Jews complained and God punished them for that complaint. The first story of complaint comes when the Jews are complaining about the diet in the desert. They're complaining about the lack of meat and the food they have to eat as they wander. We'll read chapter 11, verses 5 and 6. The rabble with them began to crave other food. And again, the Israelites started wailing and said, "If only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna." Here we can see how the Jews romanticize their time in Egypt. Notice how they don't mention the slavery, the whippings, the beatings, the murder. But all they mention is the fact that when they wanted meat, they could eat meat. It's very interesting to notice how they romanticize that part of their lives. How when we look back at past experiences, sometimes we forget all the negativity and we just remember what we miss. Moses is so affected by this complaint that he calls out to God. In verses 11 through to 15 we read, "Why have you brought this trouble on your servant? What have I done to displease you that you put the burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive all of these people? Did I give birth to them? Why do you tell me to carry them in my arms as a nurse carries an infant, to the land you promised on oath to their ancestors? Where can I get meat for all these people? They keep wailing to me, 'Give us meat to eat.' I cannot carry all these people myself. The burden is too heavy for me. If this is how you are going to treat me, please go ahead and kill me." God hears these cries from the Jewish people. He hears the complaints and the cries from Moses, and he acts. He says, "Yes, you want meat? I'll give you meat. Not enough for a day, but enough to last you months." God says he'll give you enough meat, it will come out of your nostrils. So much meat that you'll begin to loathe it. And that's exactly what happened. God brought a giant wind in, a gust of wind, and quail began to fall and land at the tents of the Jewish people. So much so that the Jews left and began gathering piles of meat to cook. And the story says that as the Jews ate, as the meat was still in their teeth, even before it had been swallowed and digested, a plague came over the Jewish people, and those who complained died. It's an interesting message in complaining and punishment. God punished those who were ungrateful for what he had given them. God punished those who spoke against Moses, who were ungrateful to their leader for having taken them out of Egypt. But it's also a message about being comfortable with the in-between zones. These Jews who were complaining were really happy to leave Egypt, and presumably will be really happy when they enter Israel. They want to go from point A to point C without enjoying the process in the middle. You can't skip that middle portion of growth and suffering. In order to become a free nation, you can't just leave slavery and enter Israel. You have to go through a time of understanding, of growth, of development, and of journey. And the people who were complaining to God about lack of meat were the ones who wanted to skip all the processes and get to their final redemption. The second story is a timely one to read now because it highlights a moment of racism in the Torah. We are all aware right now that Black Lives Matter protests are happening all around the world, including here in Australia. And this week's parasha shows us a moment where God punishes those who judge people based on the color of their skin. Miriam and Aaron speak against Moses because he married a black woman. Zipporah, Moses' wife, is described as being a black woman in the Torah. And it is for that reason that they complain to God. They complain that he married a woman of color. In an ironic punishment, God turns their white skin against them and gives them leprosy. The Torah says that their skin became so white as clouds, and it began scaly and painful, and it made them sick. It's a pretty clear line in the sand that God is drawing between those who he accepts, those who accept different colors, different people, and those who don't. I hope you can take some messages from this week's parasha into your weekend. I wish you all health and happiness and a Shabbat Shalom.